see this. I'll just take a minute to make some corrections here. It doesn't seem to work. No, it's not working. It doesn't work. How?
So I'd like to introduce you to the participants. Dr. Pradeep Srivastava is the member academic, MP Private University Regulatory Commission. Sir has done his MSc and PhD from Vikram University. Formerly Professor and Head Environmental Studies, Barkatullah University, Bhopal, India. Dean of Life Science and member, Executive Council, Chairman, Board of Studies. Currently, Sir is also engaged with Madhya Pradesh State Wetlands Authority, ACOM Asia Company Limited, and is with Ernst & Young LLP as an expert consultant. Sir has supervised 30 PhDs and 60 MPhil dissertations. He has published 80 papers, supervised 20 major and 300 minor projects as director.
Where is my...
Sir has mobilized financial resources from the government agencies for at least 11 prestigious R&D projects. He has authored a number of books. Sir, I request you to please take the session.
What? Initially. Okay, thank you. So thank you very much, the Vice Chancellor and the faculty of the university for having given me this opportunity to speak to you and share my experiences. I have been a professor for 40 years in Barkatullah University. So today's talk it is for people and a professor who is basically in education, field of education, in people who have done MAd or B.Ed or PhD, etc. Because this is on pedagogy. But I will speak to you based on my own experience. I've been teaching, various courses in the university. So how pedagogy, fits, or how my experience fits into the old pedagogy and the new pedagogy, and why that a shift is required, etc. I would like to speak to you. And much before that, I would like to tell you about something as to why this. Why this change in pedagogy is required. The thing is that, what happens is, this is my own experience of pedagogy. Currently, the pedagogy currently in practice in higher education, and what and why this change is required to enable us to address challenges in life, in the real life situation, especially the one which is related to unemployment among the youth in the country. This unemployment problem has already been there ever since the country became independent. And it is there till date. There have been several reasons for this unemployment. Most of us know because we are from academics. But one of the reasons is the education, which is an essential factor for not being able to provide the type of workforce that the employer for the industry was looking for, and had expected the educational institutions to offer to the industries and the business. This is working. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So, in fact, what happens is some of the premier institutions in the country, like IIM, IITs, I'm talking about, and maybe there are other management schools or other engineering professional studies schools are there. They met the requirement of the trained workforce for industries and businesses in the country. And the students who passed out from there didn't face much problem being entrepreneur or being employed in the industry. But the student across the nation, the nationwide, a large number of students, they were not benefited by the several opportunities which cropped up, because they were deprived of these opportunities. There were reasons why they were. The main reason was how this curriculum was framed under which they were studying and was brought into practice. That was the main reason in our higher education institution. How this was developed and no serious thought was given to this curriculum and the pedagogy that existed earlier, that is existing even now, to teach the professional courses as well as the simple courses of UGC courses also, because employment generation or livelihood earning or entrepreneurship development is widespread. It is applicable to all the courses, whether it's a professional or it is a simple UGC courses. So, I will cite you an example why these our professional courses they could not deliver the goods that they were expected to do. Why? One of the examples is, you must have seen that, the boys, the students, not the boys, I'm not biased, the student who pass out from computer science or IT or some other part of the, branch of the engineering, the practice is, I'm not talking of the premier institution, I'm talking of the institution, common institution in the country. If they want to get employment in any industry or any business, they are kept for 2 to 3 months, or even for longer period of time, to undergo a training in which the industry trains them in the skill which they expected this student to have before coming to the institution. And during that period, they do not get the formal employment. It's only after they complete it, they get the formal employment. That means the period they spend for training in these industries, whether an engineer or a basic scientist who was employed in the industries or in the business, they should have done this thing when they were doing their course. But the course, they didn't have that opportunity to undergo that kind of training. They didn't have an opportunity to undergo that kind of learning. Otherwise, they would have got straightway into the job. And they would have competed with the student even from the higher institutions also, the national level institutions also. That this is what is lacking in our pedagogy, not in the courses, but in the pedagogy. Of course, courses, the curriculum also to be changed if the pedagogy changes. What happens is the learning part of education that needed to be added to the system, which created deficiency in our systems, in the curricula. That was the main part of it. So learning part is missing from the entire pedagogy that is there today, both in professional courses and in the ordinary courses also, UGC courses also. That is why a paradigm shift is required from learning, from listening to learning. Today it is listening. You sit in the class and you listen. There are 100 people, 100 students sitting in a class, and one teacher is speaking to them and they are listening. How much is the learning outcome? Is very low. And that's why there is problem in the employment, etc. So this from listening to learning is the shift. This is what is required in paradigm shift. And then what is the learning? In fact, very effective learning requires what it requires. It requires very comprehensive approach. What it requires that there should be appropriate curriculum should be there. Even the curriculum today is not that appropriate as it should have been. The appropriate curriculum means something when they undergo this course, or when they take this course for 3 years or 4 years, they should learn things. They should know what they are doing. If you do not know what you are doing, you will never come to know what you are not doing. That's the problem. And that's why curriculum has to change. And then they should be engaging pedagogy. Engaging pedagogy, a pedagogy is something, what is pedagogy means, the teaching methods. The people in education and psychology know more about this than me. So pedagogy is how we are teaching, the method of teaching, that is pedagogy. Engaging pedagogy means the students are otherwise, as a passive learner, they are sitting in the class. They are not engaged. The teaching method doesn't engage them. It is only the teacher who delivers and they receive passively. So this engaging pedagogy is required, where students also participate in classes. And then continuous formative assessment. There are 2 types of assessment of a student of them. One is called a summative assessment that is done at the end of the semester. What happens today, what happens with me, what happens with you, and what happens with most of those who are participating in this program. Summative is at the end of the semester, there's an exam conducted. And what we do is, this is basically how much we remember, not how much we learned. How much we remembered, we reproduce it in the copies, that's all. And that our grades are given for our ability to memorize things and retain it till the exam is held. So this is summative exam. But here in another kind of what change is required, a formative pedagogy, formative method of assessment, which is nothing but, during the process of learning, when you are learning in a semester, daily or weekly, your evaluation is done. Performance evaluation, how much you have understood, how much you have learned, how much you will be able to apply whatever you have learned, how much new knowledge and new skill you have been able to create out of whatever has been given to you. Everything is evaluated by the student and by the teacher. And then this is called formative assessment. And then cumulative is at the end of the session, at the end of the semester, all this assessment goes and accumulated to do the summative assessment and award the grades and percentage or credits, whatever is to be given. So the process is different from simple assessment to formative assessment, and at the end summative assessment. पूरे सेमेस्टर भर आप उनका एवेल्यूशन करिए, उनको मार्क्स दीजिए, और जब आपका वो खत्म हो जाए एट द एंड ऑफ द सेमेस्टर, इन सबको आप एक्युमुलेट करके फिर ग्रेड्स दीजिएगा आप. दिस इज व्हाट इज रिक्वायर्ड, क्योंकि दिस इज नॉट अ टेस्ट ऑफ मेमोरी, दिस इज अ टेस्ट ऑफ बेसिकली लर्निंग, how much you have learned. वो evaluation जो होता है all through the semester daily, that is evaluation is how much you are learning. And for effective learning, for a meaningful learning, and evaluation of what you are doing, a regular evaluation is very important. Without evaluation, you do not know. I come and sit in the class and go away after 1.5 hours. And it's a boring class. जैसे अभी मैं अगर 2 घंटे बोलूंगा तो 50% of the participant will not be able to hear me, listen to me, or absorb or assimilate anything. So I will see that I don't speak for much longer time. Although in the class I speak for 1.5 hours, but then we had a different type of classes we used to take. We were in the university, so we had that opportunity. Didn't have very big classes. We had 20 students, 15 students in a class. So almost the system which I'm going to speak about, the same system partially be implemented successfully. I'll show you in the photographs, you can see this thing. And the classes where the students come for learning, that environment should be conducive to self-learning by the students. That infrastructure is required. Infrastructure means a student should be able to communicate, to debate, to discuss, to talk, to get support from the fellow students, to get support from the coach, to get support from the peers. They should have access of information should be there, all kinds of new gadgets which basically provide information to the student should be there. I mean, this is the new environment class should have. This is what the kind of change. So this is introductory. I'll just switch over to my presentation. And how much time do you give me to speak to you? About half an hour or less than that?
So the session is for 2 hours, so 1.5 hours. So you can carry on.
Half hours, 1.5 hours. The thing, this is contradictory to what I'm going to speak to you. The longer the class, less is the information ended up in the notes of the student and in the brain. Shorter is the class, is always better. It should be meaningful also. So, yeah, we are sharing. Yeah, you're sharing. This is the point. This is here. Sharing. Oh, can you see my previous? Right?
Yes, we can see, sir.
Oh, thank you.
If you could put it on full screen, sir.
I could put it on the full screen. Is it all right now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Perfect.
Okay. So this is the paradigm shift to student-centered learning. This is also a need for the new education policy. I would like to tell you about those, at least those who are the faculty, teaching in the university or other university. They should read the document. That's a 60-70 pages document of the new education policy. If you go to page number 33 or page number 38, perhaps, if I remember, they say that, unless they emphasize on learning, because if the learning is not integrated into the teaching, into the education, this will be a futile exercise. And that's why the entire changes should be brought in to make learning as an integral part of the teaching. Now, this is what she is one of my students. She's teaching in one of the universities. It's not negative, but I'm telling you, there's such a big class. A teacher is teaching. How much interaction takes place in such class. I know it's very difficult to say. Hardly there is any opportunity for the student to interact with the teacher. So this is the current situation. This is current, status of teaching, or the paradigm. This is the teacher-centered paradigm, where the teacher is important, not the student. The philosophers, long time back when we were not born, I do not remember the years when the Confucius, what he said there: if I see something, I forget. If I hear something, I remember. If I do something, I understand. And if I understand something, I can apply it in the real life situation to address the problems, to find solutions to the problem, to give answers to the problems, and to address any challenge. And as I said to you, if you do not know what you are doing something, you're studying something. If you do not know what you are studying, you will never come to know what else you have to study and what you are not studying. And that's why what we are doing, we should always know. And that's what, it is the learning basically tells you. And it is your own engagement, your own involvement in the process of teaching or learning that tells you what you are doing. And this is the process when you learn it. Yeah, Einstein also said, there's nothing beyond Einstein. I never teach my pupils. I only attempt to provide the condition in which they learn. So the condition is what? The teacher is the coach. He sits silently, not silently. He is there to support them. He is not on the stage. He is on the side of the stage. On the stage are the students. Just the teacher supports them. What do you want? This is the content. This is the subject. This is the problem. You study. And this is the enabling environment in the class. The sources of information are there. You have opportunity to talk to each other. You have opportunity to debate. You have opportunity to explain things. You have opportunity to brainstorm. And if you have a problem, approach me. I will help you. It's not that I speak and you receive passively and then class is over. This is what Einstein said. So things are true. It has been included in new policy of education also. Today, currently we have the pedagogy. It's called as teacher-centered pedagogy. But the teacher is. It is teacher-centered. He's in the active role. Active role means he teaches, that's all. And the student listen to the teacher. It is said that teacher is a sage on the stage. He is on stage. He is the only wise man. The students do not have any existence. This is what this dialogue wants to say. And the knowledge is transmitted from teacher to student. He speaks, he delivers a lecture and gives information more than knowledge. And this information ends up in the notes of the students, not the entire small part of it. Students are passive receptor. They receive the information, that's all. They don't have an active role. And since they do not have an active role, no learning takes place. They acquire the knowledge, they memorize it, and at the end of the semester, they reflect it they reproduce the knowledge or the information, not the knowledge, the information on their copies to get the credits. That's all. It is, there is no interaction among the students or with the teacher. There is some interaction. I don't say, but, the exceptions do not make rules. Like, in my own department where we are doing a lot of interaction, we did everything, but that doesn't make rule. What happens in, far-flung, colleges in far-flung places, in the remote places also. What in the remote places in a big city also like Bhopal and Indore and Ujjain also, the same thing is happening. There's no interaction. When I did my undergraduate, I did from a very big college from Ujjain. We had a very big class. There were 60 students sitting in a class. And if teachers said, if he's teaching chemistry to us, how much of it comes to us and we note down, because we never interacted with the teacher. We never interacted among ourselves also as to what is being taught to us. That is, BSc is very difficult. Undergraduate course is very difficult. So they say it is a binge and purge is, you eat something and forcibly you vomit something. So you eat the information and release it in the copies. That's all, without assimilating anything. That is the thing. And the teacher is everything. He decides everything. He decides your discipline. He decides your discipline. He decides the dates. He decides the deadlines. He decides the course. He decides everything. And what is the course? So teacher role, it is all teachers' role in today's pedagogy, most active. What students are doing, let me know if they're doing something. All of us have passed through that, excepting those who are students and currently studying, and not those who studied 10 years back or so, like me and maybe others also. And what happens here is that, what is a good course? What good course is a very rigorous course is a good course, and include it in this very rigorous course, include it in the subject and teach this thing. And what happens as a result of which, a rigorous course is very tedious. We can't learn it, so we memorize it. That's what is happening. 40 families. I am a student of biology. Basically, we had 40 families of plants which were taught to us when we were in BSc. Can you understand, those who are a student of botany or either PG or in the undergraduate, to remember 40 families and to give exam in the annual system after 1 year? This was one topic. How difficult it is to learn. This is what happens, in a very rigorous course. So, and the entire content is basically for teaching, not for learning. This is what is happening in the current country. I'm telling you my own pain also, which you will also share, I think, what happened to us. So things are changing, but gradually. It's not that the same condition exists even today. Things are changing. Now, I, as a student, didn't do anything after class or at the end of the day. I attended 3 periods of, one was zoology, another was botany, and third was chemistry. And at the end of the day, I didn't do anything. I didn't created any knowledge out of it, any skill out of it, or I did not, because I didn't talk to my friend who was sitting by me. I didn't talk to my fellow students who were sitting in the class. And I never had courage to talk to the professor who had so much to teach us that the entire 1.5 hours he continued to teach us. That's all. And then he had to leave it, and he didn't have the courage. He didn't have the the energy to talk to us after 1.5 hours period. So much of rigorous it was. And as I tell you, and then at the end of the semester or at the end of the year, whatever I memorized, out of the 40 families, perhaps 10 families I could do very well. If I get questions in the 10 families, I will solve. If I get the rest of the families are they're these are families. The plants are categorized in families. They're called families. They're very tough also. To me, it was tough. I do not know for others. And so I memorized and I reproduced this thing there. And this is what is happening. And I got the grade in the first class, and I came out. And after a year, if you ask me what is the Malvesi family, the gudhal ka phool hota na, lal wala jo. What is the Malvesi family? Can you describe it? I'll think 10 times and take an hour to tell them what the Malvesi family is. It doesn't happen these days, fortunately. And then it is very competitive. Such system is competitive because I am confined to myself, and I do everything to get higher grades, to get higher percentage, all through the system, all through the session. I will be doing this thing. I don't worry about learning, and I do not, what is in my mind is that Ramesh and Suresh should not get marks more than me, and I should top in the class, I should top in the university, in the class, etc. This is very competitive, and it is very individualistic. I talk and think about myself. That's all. I never thought about how much I learned. This is a fact, and this has happened. This is happening even now, today also. I was talking to one of my colleagues who was sitting by me. He's a computer expert. And when I was opening this thing, I asked him to come and do it because I'm not much used to this thing, Zoom, etc. And there was some problem. He solved me in a minute. I said, what did you do? What is your qualification? Then he said me from a small institution. He did the computer course, MBC or something, and some other courses also, apart from post-graduation. And they say the post-graduation did not benefit him so much as these small courses that he did. He is running, I'm in IO here. This is private university regulatory commission. And this boy is managing the entire IT system here. Everything, the website, everything. I mean, if you ask an engineer to come in, he will say, sir, I'll take some time and let me talk to Deshmukh. He will tell me and how to do this thing. But this boy is doing it. Thank you very much. So now if we talk about ourselves as to how much does the system promote learning? the system that I'm talking to you about, does it promote learning among the student? And when we were student, how much and how we learn? How we learn is, I have cited an example how we learn. And I will tell you an example also how we learn the best, which my own, the charity begins at home. That's why I will tell you about myself, how I learned and how I still learn those things. And that's true for you also. But this thing is, I know what you learn the best. You go back and retrieve everything. You don't find much that you don't remember many things today, which you really learn by the core of your heart. But the system was different, because the only advantage of this teacher-centered system, teacher-centered learning, is that, very large amount of information, as I told you, very rigorous courses, is transmitted to very large number of students sitting in a class. That's all. Listeners, they are not learner, they are listeners. They sit there, and what happens is, very long lecture of 1.5 hours, very less information is ended up in the notes, and it is assimilated, it goes to the brain. This is what is happening. Now, this is not my publication, you see, because I'm not a specialist. I have borrowed it from somewhere. This is developed by some university, and somehow it has not come. There are two kinds of learning. One is passive, and other is active. When it is a passive learning, when you hear or you see and you read, and you are not participating, you don't speak anything, you don't write anything, that's all. And the class is over, that's all. This is passive learning. Very small part, what has been put before you or presented before you in the class by the teacher, you retain for a longer period of time, and the learning is almost very insignificant learning. Whatever you have seen or what you have heard or seen, you can produce it as such. That's all. You can reproduce it. You cannot develop any skill. You cannot solve problems with this passive learning, because you have not learned. So you do not know how to find out solution to a problem in the real life, how to answer a question, or how to address the challenges in the life and challenges in the real life. Because you have not learned, so you do not know those techniques also. But if you discuss about it, if you debate about that, if you brainstorm about it, and if you do that thing, the content, the subject, then up to 90% you retain, and then you can do creative thinking. You can do, you can evaluate yourself. You can analyze the situations in the real life, and you can define and create and synthesize new things, provided you have done that active learning. I will cite you an example of active learning. Many of us who are participating, and those who have done their PhDs, doctoral degree, and those who are still doing the doctoral degree, if they are there. I do not know the constitution of the participants here. If you ask me, when I was doing my post-graduation in zoology from School of Studies in Zoology, Vikram University, one of the best zoology department of the country, with the topmost professors from studied in Cambridge and Oxford there. I couldn't become till my end of this is almost at 69 years old. I have not become like them, despite I spent 40 years in the university. There are 2 or 3 topics I still remember, apart from several other topics which they taught to us. And there was a topic on plasma membrane, the membrane which surrounds the cell. And there was another topic was on the parasites which remain, which are the helminth parasites, which inhabit the body of the animals, including the human beings also. And the third topic was the mitochondria, that's called as powerhouse of the cell in the body also. And that the professor who taught me mitochondria, Dr. Bhaskar, is still in Chicago. I met him 2 months back. So these are the 3 topics on which I was given a seminar in my MSc first year and second year. And he gave us, the professor said, these are your topics, you prepare now. He gave some introductory idea, that's all. We had a very big library. I considered very good journals. I mean, and MSc first year students, consulting the International Psychological Review. These are reference books we used to consult. It's not my story. This is story of all my fellow students who were with me doing MSc that time. And we consulted all literature. We didn't have access to the online thing. We didn't have internet those days, but everything in the library we consulted. We discussed with the professor, with the guide under whom I was doing the seminar, and with my own professors and the colleagues, my own friends, because they were also preparing for their own seminar. This thing I still remember. Now, I did in 75, I passed out, but maybe more than 45 years, but I still have those things in my mind. This is how, because I participated, I did it. And I do, and they showed me things also on the Microsoft, whatever, gadgets were available those days in the lab. Another thing, those who have done PhDs, is when we do PhD, doctoral degree, we do everything ourselves. We interact with the guide, we sit with him, we talk to him, he gives us the problem, and he discusses with us when he gives the problem for doing a PhD. He also, then we consult the literature, we read the literature, we bring the literature from outside, spend time in the library. We do lab work also. If I'm a student of science and technology, we have to go in the lab also. And not only this, people in the social science, they also do the laboratory work in their own type of laboratory they have. So like psychology people also do. So this is what we have to do, and we do it. So we do it, we write papers, we read papers, we present it in the conferences, and we are involved in it, actively involved in it. You asked me, I did my PhD in 79, but I think I still remember everything that I did my PhD. I don't teach my PhD in the classes, nowadays. That gave me additional, information, knowledge, understanding of the subject of environmental science. I did it. So, and the same thing is true for you also. You will never forget your PhD. You will already, anytime somebody asks you as to what is your problem, what you did, you'll be able to tell without consulting anything, because you have actively done it. So this is what is called as active learning. And this is what is really required in the system. So you can see the two photographs here. One is for the teacher-centered learning, with a big class being, taught by the teacher here, faculty, and how much learning, interaction, and support from the teacher will be available. You can think of it. So they passively listen to the teacher, very attentively, but passively. And on the right side is the student-centered learning. Student-centered learning is the student are in the center, teacher is on the side, student on the stage, teacher on the side of the stage. This photograph on the right side, where the student, this is my own department, and since we have environmental science department, so we go in the field, and it's a kind of hands-on learning kind of thing. They're studying the quality of water perhaps in one of the reservoirs, and they do themselves what is the quality of water and the status of pollution, and everything they do themselves. So the teacher he has told the teacher, this is what you have to do. They do it themselves. They're sitting there. They will do everything. They have all the instrument. So if I teach this thing in the class and do not do any hands-on training, or take them to a place where they themselves learn, do, discuss, and debate, they will never learn it. This is what we have been doing. And that's why others also do. People in other colleges and university also do. So what is the student-centered learning? Student-centered learning is that the teacher is facilitator and not the giver of information. What a facilitator means, okay, this is what is the topic we have to teach, and this is the salient features, or the broadly he will explain things to the student. This is what we have to do, and this is what you have to learn, and for what and for which an environment is created in the class. And this environment is very conducive to self-learning. But the teacher doesn't, he only facilitates everything. Whatever is not available, he will make it available. If there is any problem in technical things also, in understanding, he will help you. So the students are active learner here. And the teacher is not sage on the stage. He is on the side of the stage, supporting the students. And students actively, and this is bit involved in learning. And in student learning, student-centered learning, this learning is in the center of the whole learning process. This is everything revolves around the learning of the student. If the infrastructure is to be created, it revolves around the need of the student. If anything is to be done, it revolves around the interest of the student. Everything is, this is what basically teacher's role here is. Teacher, this is not an individualistic. This is the teacher has to, the student is not individualistic approach. The student is in the group, but the teacher has to, the role is very important role, has to observe every student in the class, to observe certain, in terms of his abilities, in terms of the strength, in terms of his needs, in terms of his interest, everything the teacher has to do. This is what basic duty of the teacher is. This is the basic role of the teacher is in the student centered teaching. Why these qualities of the student, of each student, teacher should know? Because this decides, this determines what will be the learning preference of the student. And this learning preference of the student himself or herself decides, not the teacher. And this is decided based on these abilities. And the teacher, in the photographs, I don't know whether you can see these photographs or not. This is all basically a student. Students are in the field. They are studying. Teachers there to help them. They will teach, they will guide them, coach them, but everything is being done. This is my own department of limnology, and another department is of environmental science. They're basically environment department, so most of the time you have to work in the field. And the students are so, and this is the responsibility of learning the content, the responsibility of learning the subject, and this rests with the student. The teacher is not responsible for learning of the student. He is facilitator. You ask him, he will do everything. But learning rests with the student. And the student has a freedom. He has a freedom. He can, any type of information he needs that is available to him, any kind of, discussion, support, debate, brainstorming, questioning and answering the question with the fellow student, everything, this is the process of learning. And that's why the responsibility of learning rests with the students. At the same time, the student is also responsible for his evaluation. He will evaluate. Apart from, teacher is also evaluating, and there are peers also evaluate. But when students evaluate his performance, he comes to know about the problems that he faced, the constant that he had. And then with the interaction with the teachers, the solution comes. And then these solutions, this help, the student improves his learning in further learning, in the next learning or the next course or in the next teaching, he does it better, more effectively, and definitely more meaningfully he does. So all through this session, all through the semester, this process goes on. So day by day, as the time passes, the student has better learning, effective learning, meaningful learning, and more amount of confidence. The characteristic feature is, it's very, this kind of class, the environment in this kind of class is very cooperative, very collaborative, very supportive. This is the culture of this class. And another important thing is, it's not only the teacher who learns, the students also learn. That's very good feature in it. When the teacher also learns. When the teacher talks to students, he also learns. The teacher is, because the new ideas come in the brain, young brain faster, and compared to the teacher, definitely. So teacher also learn a lot of things. There are 40 people giving 20 different ideas, and teacher doesn't have 20 ideas. When he comes, he's exposed to 20 ideas. That's the advantage of the system. And this is what you can see. You can see this thing on the left hand side. We can see his teacher is Dr. Vipin Vyas, and he's professor and head of life science. He has taken the students and then he's assigning them, this is what they have to do in the field. Environmental science is taught in the environment much more than in the class. And this on the right hand side is one of my students who is a professor there, and they are basically how the interaction between the teacher. This slide shows how the interaction and the dialogue between the teacher and the student goes on. This indicates this photograph. Now, what happens is in enabling environment in the class, in the student-centered learning system. As we know, the classroom is conducive to self-learning by the student. So one of the important infrastructure or the system that a student need is the information, access to information. A problem is given to me, a challenge is given to me, and I have to find out solution. I have to address the problem. The teacher is not teaching what I do. I should have, if I have information, I can go read, analyze, understand, critically look at it. And if I can do this thing, I can learn and I can address a challenge. I can find solution to a problem. So what we need, the most important thing is the sources of information. I have given a source of information about, the online, internet, WhatsApp, mutual discussion, and a group discussion, debate, and the peers, Wikipedia, blogs, reference books, journals, magazines, and newspaper, etc. All these things should be made available to the student in the class. Doesn't mean in the class, he should have access to all these things, and let him do himself. Let him do himself. He will feel more responsible. You have to only watch. You have to just see. If needs help, you have to help. You means the teacher, including me. Now, the role of teacher here is, I have already described, I think this will be a redundant slide. What happens is, teacher has to recognize the point of view of all students and listen to it carefully and recognize it. Can't reject it because he has ideas. He has to help him. Teacher has to interact, and only with those ideas, the student learns. There are different ways. So the point of view of the learners, teacher has to very carefully listen. And there are different modalities of learning also. The professor of education or maybe professor of psychology understands better. But I, as a teacher, when I taught in the class, I found that when I was teaching biological diversity in reservoirs and rivers, I was working on the river, entire maybe 1,000 kilometers of length, or in different reservoirs. So we were studying the biological diversity. I know when I took students to the field, and when the teachers today they take the student to the field, there's only one method of learning the biological diversity. Biological diversity is how many types of fishes are there, at what depth in the reservoir different fishes are there, or what are the microorganisms are there, or what are the the bigger organism beyond the fish are there. They are amphibious, or they are carnivores kind of organisms, or there are organisms which live in the mud, maybe 100 feet or 200 feet down the reservoir. We were working in Indra Sagar. It's very deep, maybe more than 100, 150 deep at the gate, where it is discharged. It's very slightly tough. So, at that depth, what kind of organism are there? So all these students are free in their own way to learn things about it. The teacher guides them, just like coaches if they have a problem, if they have a difficulty. And teacher keep asking them open-ended questions. Open-ended question is a question, there is a question and there is a discussion followed by them. So these are open-ended questions. So the answer to an open-ended question is not yes or no. Answer to any open-ended question is, kind of discussion. It goes to any length. The answer can go to any length. And this is how the problem which a student is facing in grasping the subject and understanding the subject is solved, is addressed. And this is the same thing, a teacher taking them to the field and telling about. And there's a lot of interaction that takes place. This is again Department of, I think, Life Science of Barkatullah University. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Environmental Science. And this again is, I've shown you these photographs also. Now, there are some student-centered learning systems are there. Couple of this thing in 2 or 3 ways this teaching can be done. Maybe that one of the active learning teaching is this is very individualized kind of teaching where a student himself does everything with not much participation. It does participate, but not much participation compared to other systems. I will tell you what is the other system. What a student does, he solves problems. The problem is given, he solves it. He consult literature, reads it, and whatever questions are raised, he himself will solve. And if there are questions raised in his mind, he himself formulated, or somebody else asked him when he interacts with his fellow students or a teacher, he answers those questions. He is ready to debate on whatever problem is given to him. So that way he debates, he presents whatever he has done. He can discuss his problems with teacher or with the fellow students when he's debating or when he's delivering talk. He can explain things, but it is confined to he more than everybody, and he can brainstorm. So the system is slightly, individualized kind of system that happens. But there are other systems, cooperative learning. Cooperative learning is all the students, they work in a team, in group. Just a minute. I have some chronic sore throat. So what happens here, the problem is given to this group. This group will jointly, collectively study it and try to find out the solutions of the problem, address the challenges, answers the question, whatever is the kind of problem is given. There is a very positive interdependence among the students. Positive interdependence is helping each other if there is a problem, but with individual accountability. I am accountable to whatever I say, to whatever I do, to whatever I am contributed, or whatever I am contributing to this, in sharing this problem, or in sharing the problem, the solution to this problem. I'm individually accountable for this thing. But the thing is that what we learn is we learn to work together, to believe in each other. We learn cooperation. We create a community of a learning community in the class. That's very important thing. And we evaluate others also. Each student here is evaluated by group. And if there is a problem, the problems are solved. If he has any problem, any constant, any difficulty, is solved by the group. This is why group, this is how they do. So this method of learning is far better than the earlier one, which was more individualized. This is the group learning, because the benefit is a student gets motivated. He gets motivation. Everybody is learning. Everybody is participating. He is motivated to participate and learn with all the vigor, with all the knowledge, with all the enthusiasm, with all the energy that he has. Now, interpersonal skill. This is also benefit. How I understand my fellow students, my colleagues, my friends, how he understands me in terms of solving the question, understanding the subject. This is called interpersonal skill. Psychologists may define it far better, but I'm defining it based on what happens in my class, and what happened in the classes when I was teaching. But you talk to a professor of psychology, a professor of education, he can give a far better technical education of it, interpretation and definition of it. He understands communication. So there are students who live in isolation, because he was in isolation, but here he doesn't communicate much. But here they communicate. They start communicating. They stop hesitating in talking to the fellows, and they communicate. They talk because they develop. When I hear 10 persons, I develop some confidence to express my own views, my own ideas for everybody, because I know what others are speaking about any subject. I also know. Maybe my point of view may be different. It is heterogeneous, but then I develop this thing. A lot of interaction takes place, a lot of communication takes place. This is the advantage of a group learning over the other learning, which is more individualized. this is a group learning kind of thing, we have teachers, we have students working. So in fact, I will be able to tell you, I could have got several other photographs from internet to show you, but then I thought I should show you the photographs, which I have experienced, which I participated, and which is there in practice in my department. So that's what I'm telling you, this thing, excepting this photograph, the last one in which they are perhaps have got a prism. This is not my, because I'm not a physics department professor. So this photograph I got from somewhere, maybe from one of the departments of the UTT, perhaps it is. One of my research scholars gave me this photograph, but these are all my departments. Then there is an inductive teaching. Inductive teaching, inductive and deductive, again, it can be defined by other professors better than me. So, what is an inductive? Inductive teaching means here is some data or some experience before you, or some artifacts or some knowledge we have, given to the student, ready-made everything. Now, what can we get from it? What can we get from this knowledge? How can I be benefited by this knowledge? How can I be benefited by the experience that's been put before you? Or the large amount of data that is put before you, how can you get benefited by this data? How can you get what can you do with that data? This is kind of the inductive teaching perhaps. So there are questions and problems, then the students learn the various material that is available with him. He will learn, he will try to understand what this experience, some data, some knowledge that is put before him. He will understand about it, and then he will find out and what can be derived from it, or what benefit or what knowledge can be derived from it, what benefit can we get from it. This is what is the basically inductive learning. And like I'm telling you, these students, when they go for studying biological diversity, I can cite only these examples, like whatever I've been doing for these years. You go in my university in Barkatullah University is very rich in nature. Most of you, if you have been to this university, it's very thick plantation and diversity of plantation, diversity of habitats, diversity of birds and insects and snakes and whatnot, and the butterflies and several things. So they see that this is these are the butterflies. They know the butterflies, and the butterfly, for instance, easier, I'll give you a slight example. These are the 10 different types of birds there, and they live in different habitats. They are in the different places. So they record the birds, they record the place where they have observed them, and they bring the data with them. And what will they learn from it? They will learn that, like Citocla cremeri is parrot, or Acrodithus tristis, manna, or for instance Passer domesticus indicus, वो जो चिड़िया होती है अपनी जो रहती है घर में, where will they present, where they were living, where they were laying eggs. Then he will derive that parrot prefers to live in this environment. This is the nature of the habitat of parrot, which is different from the habitat of Passer domesticus indicus, चिड़िया जो होती है, or manna, the Acrodithus tristis. They are different. Their feeding is different. Their nets are different. Their egg laying habits is different. Their parental caring is different. That's what he observes there. This is the information he gets from it. This is the inductive learning. Now, there are various ways to achieve this thing. Like this can be an inquiry-based learning. This can be, the name itself tells you about how the learning can be done. Inquiry-based learning, you go and inquire about something. A problem is given, you go and inquire about it. Inquiry-based learning is different from question-based learning. Because in inquiry-based learning, there are n number of questions you ask wherever you go. And these n number of questions to understand. you try to understand the subject, you try to understand the problem. Then there are question-based learning. Question-based learning is, as I understand, there are a couple of questions you repeatedly ask by changing the shapes and size of those questions, the different aspects of the question, and they try to understand those things, the problem, the subject. The same is problem-based, and there is a problem, and then, like for instance, there's a problem, there is an environmental problem, and we tell the student there is an environmental problem in the university campus with respect to the pollution of the water resources here, both the drinking water and the natural water resources. Go and find out. So all these students will go have their own observation, and they understand in their own way, and all of them will come and join together and put and present. This is what he has understood. This is what the Ramesh has understood, and this is what Mahesh, and so on and so forth. So all of them will understand this problem in their own way, and they present before each other, and then they learn from each other also. From there, and similarly, a discovery-based and project-based, you understand this better. This is the inductive teaching. Inductive teaching, maybe we can think that, understand that this may be the teacher is giving problem to the students. This is the problem, and they come back with the solution or with their observations, and then talk to teachers. This is what is happening, and this is again my own students who are professors now. They are doing. She's Vipin, she's Vilasha, I think. So now there are some characteristics of the student-centered learning. Most of these I have already discussed with you. There is, relationship is one. As I've told you, there is more collaborative, cooperative, supportive relationship you develop between among the students and with the coach also, with the student, with the teacher also. Then curriculum today. In fact, if we want to change the pedagogy, we will have to change pedagogy. We will have to shift from teacher-centric to student-centric. If not today, tomorrow, if we want the NEP 2020 to be successful, one of the factors is pedagogy. So curriculum will have to change. It should be a very thematic curriculum. I mean, the entire curriculum or the course should revolve around the theme. It becomes thematic, so it becomes more relevant. It is experiential. Whatever you study, you learn, you can experiment it in the real life situation. And it is inclusive of multiple perspectives. Not only I have studied pollution. Why Narmada is pollution? I have analyzed the water quality of Narmada and biological diversity, and I reported that, Narmada is very polluted. But it is not multiple perspective, like, in the other system, in the teacher-centered system, it was one subject or one discipline is taught. It was not multidisciplinary, it was not interdisciplinary also. Student-centric will be a multidisciplinary, multi-perspective also. Pollution, if Narmada is polluted somewhere, Narmada is least polluted river. If in case, I'm citing an example, if Narmada is polluted somewhere, the parameters say it is polluted, or leave aside Narmada. I don't touch Narmada, it's very fast. You come to Khan. Most of you who are from Indore know about the Khan River. If Khan River is polluted, we have the parameters. So these are the parameters. Khan River is polluted. I did my part of my PhD was Khan River also, when it joins Shipra and Ujjain and Triveni. There I was studying it. So why is okay? Your data says it is polluted. What are the reasons? What are the socio-economic factors? What are the developmental factors? What are the city planning factors, town planning factors? What are the factors, other factors, which basically are responsible for bringing Khan to this status, to this stage of pollution? That is why not only pollution, it should be multi-perspective. You have to, other views, other viewpoints also you have to include. Then only the better learning comes home. Then the instruction is another characteristic. It is participatory. Not only the teachers learn, the students also learn. The students also speak about it. The students also debate. They discuss, they brainstorm, they experience everything they do. Everything is done in this instruction. It is not a transmission of knowledge from teachers to students. Students do everything depending upon their qualities, their strength, abilities, interests, and needs, they participate in this instruction, which the teacher gives not much as in the LR system. But when they themselves, the instruction, most of the instruction is among the student. So with these qualities in the student, they participate in that instruction. And of course, what teacher tells about. A slightly different kind of instruction it is. There is grouping. So I told you about there is grouping, when there is teamwork, so it promotes cooperation, collaboration, support to each other, positive interdependence. There is a shared responsibility. It's a very important thing, shared responsibility, because when we work in group, we share responsibility. As we share our share of work we do, we are responsible for that. We share for the recommendations also. We share for the outcome also, etc. And then we feel belongingness. The whole system that we are working, we belong to it or it belongs to us. Then evaluation. There are different types of evaluation can be done. The multiple intelligence. There are different types of intelligence. Some people learn linguistic. Linguistic means they can read or they can write. So, just a minute. Some people use mathematics, mathematically you can tell them as to explain something. There are some people who can go hands-on training. So the learning is done in these different ways. So the evaluation has to be done in different ways also. There is authentic learning, and then there is self-reflection also. Authentic learning is something which you can demonstrate whatever you have learned. And self-reflection is whatever you have learned, whatever you have seen or has been presented before you, you can reflect on it, you can tell about it, and then you can evaluate it based on this thing. So that's all. This is what most of things which I experienced, I have told you, and some of this I try to understand from other sources also as to what this learning is, what it is. So it was basically an assemblage of various sources of information that I had, and hybrid kind of lecture it had. So I do not know whether I could really benefit people. I could convey what I understood about the subject to the listeners, to the participant, effectively or not. Thank you very much. If there are questions, I will try to answer.
Thank you, sir, for that enlightening session. So there are some questions that the participants have.
Yeah.
I shall read out the questions.
Yeah.
So one attendee has asked, I have to teach in the class of a strength of 120. How can I be student-centric for such a crowd?
It would be very difficult. It would be very difficult with 120 student-centric. Yeah, that's why I think the large crowd in a class. But nothing is impossible. You can put it in the groups, divide into, and make 4 different groups. So smaller groups can give a problem, and they can work in a smaller group. One group of 120, my own experience, I'm telling, not studied. There's no principle I'm applying here. So you can have 2, 4, or 5 groups of a large class and give the same problem to them, the same challenge, the same, content, and they will ask, and they will solve the problem. But you'll have to be slightly more active in assisting all 140, 120.
So there's another question or a comment initially from Professor Dhara Jha. They say that, thank you, sir, for sharing this. I agree with the discussion regarding student-centric learning. But what if the students are not enthusiastic for learning and only read and are only ready to have bookish knowledge? how to induce the zeal and hunger for learning?
I don't, so long as I, as a teacher, I am responsible for your learning, you will leave everything on me. Sir, you teach, you evaluate, you assess, and you give us grade. Goodbye. The moment I say that, no, this is a subject, you read, you evaluate, you try to understand, following these methods I discuss with you. And then I will evaluate, you will also evaluate yourself. If there are problems, you ask me. I'm not going to teach. I'm not going to transmit information. You have everything available to you to learn, to understand, to read, to discuss, and everything. The group is there. Friends are there, teachers there, peers are there. You do it yourself. There is no way. And the evaluation done today, the formative assessment done today will be cumulative. At the end of semester, you will get the grades based on this. So you will have to learn. You'll have to do it. And then, of course, teacher is not the source of information and knowledge. He is a source of inspiration. Teacher, the biggest quality of a teacher is he has to inspire. 50 years back, 45 years back, those who taught me, those who inspired. Yes. Yes, madam, please, next.
Yes, sir. Dr. Anjali Sharma, she asks, how can experiential learning be applied to theory subjects?
Yes, maybe. Like, for instance, if you are teaching Mahadevi Verma, or if you are teaching Bachchan or Premchand, it's a theory, is it not? I'm talking to you about the Hindi literature. Same thing. Experiential it can be experiential when you discuss and you ask them to present it. If I discuss Munshi Premchand, or if I discuss Bismarck in European history, supposing we talk about Bismarck, I read and I discuss and I ask questions. It becomes like an experiment. I cannot become Bismarck, if you know history, I'm a student of history, know about Bismarck. But if I read Bismarck and if I discuss with teacher, if I discuss with my students, fellows about the Bismarck, then that will help as much as the experiment help. Nobody can play role of Akbar or Maharana Pratap. These are theoretical, things, because this is what I feel. In next week.
So Dr. Anjali Sharma is asking if you could throw some light in the area of human resource management and how experiential learning can be applied in the area of human resource management in particular. Though I know that is not your area, sir.
Yeah.
So
I think
maybe
people here are, so the management people are there, and I'm trying to address the management faculty and management student. That's not my area. But in any case, experiential learning, why can't the human resource management be? It can be done experiential. You have to think about it. Like, I have not in deep studied human resource management, right? If I have basics of those things, then I can tell you where it can be done. Those who are professor of management, perhaps, I think they will be able to, they will really be, I can speak anything here, but I can't speak something which will be meaningful and effective, or, that's what about the human resource management. I'm a student of life science, so the entire thing revolves around it. With those examples, I try to explain things.
Yes, do we have any other questions, please? Any other questions regarding and relating to teaching learning pedagogies? If you do have any questions or even comments, if you could please share them in the chat box or in the question answer section. There are no more questions? All right, sir. With that, then we will conclude the session. I thank you so very much on behalf of Sri Vaishnav Vidyapith Vishwavidyalaya to have talked and shared your expertise and your knowledge on the topic teaching learning pedagogies which are learner-centric. And for all the participants who are here, I would like to ask you to join us for the next session as per the brochure schedule shared with all of you. Thank you so much, sir. We can now break from this meeting. Thank you so much, sir.
Namaskar, sir. Thank you so much, Dr. Srivastava. I think sir has left. Is it? Or there is some problem with the net?
Ma'am. I think there's a problem with sir's internet connectivity.
Yes.
Pradeep, sir, can you hear us?
He has already left. Now, at what time do you have the next session? At 2?
Ma'am, now we have our next session tomorrow.
Today is over, na?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Tomorrow at what time?
So, ma'am, at 10 o'clock we'll start.
10.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am, sir has apologized.
Yes. All right.
Thank you, everybody. Please join us for our next session, the link for which will be shared with you shortly. Thank you. You can please leave now.